Hey guys, welcome back to Mess Up for Two. I'm Nicole Elise, and I'm just so glad you are here. If you are new and just newly subscribing, this is essentially a place where I just want to share my heart, share what God's been doing in my life, and hope and pray that He encounter you and do the same. And so I just wanted to continue the discussion that I had, and I'm so sorry. I had the goal that I would be posting every week, and that's what the Lord had placed in my heart, and just begin to use my mouth to testify what God's done for me and share the good news of the gospel. Because I think there's just so much out there that we need so much more people just coming out and sharing the blessings that God continuously does for us. Um, I just thought maybe that I could be a little unscripted and just share some life updates and just things that I've had to go through. And then I essentially wanted this specific show to be like a part two to the testimony and just share some of the ways that God's continuously evolving me and what He's doing and just shaping and softening my heart. And so, that being said, I had a crazy week last week that kind of put me out. My youngest daughter had a pretty bad fall. She tripped and sliced her lip and had her tooth get cut in half and where her nerve is actually poking out. And so we were in the ER and she just spent like the past few days at home with us as we were just monitoring and making sure that she was clear of an infection. And praise God, because like the doctor had shared with us, she's healing really fast. Um, but unfortunately her tooth, because the nerve is still open and revealed, I'll have to bring her in to the dentist and get her checked in for that. So if you're a believer, please, I encourage and welcome your prayers over my daughter. Um, and if you're new and don't know me at all, for context, I currently have three. Which is crazy because I think just in my last video, I had spoken to you guys about how through God's grace, He allowed me to become a mother. And there's never a moment where I don't think about that, how close I could have not been a mother and how my life would have looked so differently if I wasn't a mom. And it kind of reminds me of this conversation that I had in the past where a friend of mine had asked, hey, like, if you had to think about God, like what's just one takeaway that you had? And I remember answering that question and telling him that honestly, I think the reason why God allowed me to be a mother is so that I can just have a sense of just a little bit of an understanding of how much He loves me. Because I had a hard time believing that I could be someone that could be loved or is loved truly. I think I spent most of my life living and only understanding conditional love. And again, this isn't a place where I'm trying to condemn anyone or anybody, but I think that at least in my culture, the way that we're taught is always love through performance. And so God's really blessed me through this specific season of teaching me to undo that, which has been incredibly humbling. And I think that'll have to be a part three video for sure, because this specific video that I wanted to dedicate time to is talking about this my personal born again experience and how that's been for me. And so just picking up from the last video where we had left off, I had talked about how I, well, not necessarily me, God pursued me and how God found me and basically revealed Himself to me before this abortion procedure was going to take place. And um, I'm incredibly humbled by that experience, but I wish I could tell you that in my life, I had an immediate change. It was never like that. I think what God has continuously done for me and my husband is we've evolved, but He's walked us through that. And it wasn't just a quick deliverance. It was basically so many things in my life had to change. And I think that as I drew near to God, the more the more my heart became convicted, the more he's allowed me to see, allowed me to hear, allowed me to speak, and allowed me to really soften my heart. Because there was a lot of areas in my heart where it was hardened from past hurts, traumas, and just even beliefs, like things that we were taught, right? And growing up is quite a process in itself. And so in that process, after Elijah, I got pregnant with our second child, Jeremiah. And I always make this joke with other people where I'm like, I mean, all three of my children are God's plan, but I make a little joke. I'm like, Jeremiah was technically our plan. Like, he was the only baby that we had actually tried for, and the other two were God's plan. Um, and my pregnancy with him was really rough. I definitely experienced a lot of things. And he was also a COVID baby. So it was just the height of many emotions, many new experiences, being stuck at home, just questioning life purpose and existence. And when I got pregnant and I delivered him, I had a really, really traumatizing birth, without needing to go into any specifics or details. It was pretty traumatizing to the point that my body ended up getting sepsis. And so there was just like a number of things happening all at the same time. Jeremiah came out, he had torticollis, his tongue tie was severe. So while I thought I was making milk, I actually wasn't. I was just going through a lot of health and personal and emotional hardships. And for those that are postpartum, like you know how hard and how difficult that is in that journey. And and I felt like once we kind of overcame some of those difficult challenges, I ended up catching COVID. And mind you, when I caught COVID, it was, it was traumatizing because it was the time where everyone just had heightened fear and didn't know, and it was a lot of uncertainty, right? It seemed like the nation broke out into chaos. And it was the first time that, when we caught COVID, my whole family caught it. We were all at home just trying to monitor symptoms and treat it just like any other sickness. But I think the reason why it hit me even harder is I have asthma and I was postpartum, and I just was already super immunocompromised from everything that I had gone through, that my health totally took a hit. And I went to the hospital thinking that I was going to quickly go out after being given some medications. But what actually ended up happening was I showed up at the hospital, and it turns out by then I already had developed pneumonia and there were crystals in my lungs. And because of the fear and heightened, just everyone being heightened, I remember them saying, hey, like, do you have an advance directive? And I just remember sitting in that emergency room, not really knowing how to process that, because I had just gone through so much health challenges with the birth of my second son, and he was just a baby, and my Elijah was still really young. And I just was thinking, like, wow, like, could this really be the end of my life? And being asked that question of, do you have a will for your life? I just wasn't emotionally or mentally prepared. And I think most of us wouldn't necessarily be. And they told me, unfortunately, you're not going home. You're going to be sent to the ICU. And at that time I was pumping, and I'm like, guys, like, how am I going to get this milk home and all that? And they're like, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to. You're going to have to dry it up. And so, again, for those that breastfeed and are women's bodies, on top of being sick, I also had to go through the process of cold turkey weaning, and my hormones just shot. And so I was super humbled. I remember crying on the way to the ICU. And thank you, God. Sorry, I'm just a little spacey because as I came here unscripted and just wanting to be led by the Spirit about what to share in my heart. And so I'm just reprocessing some of the things that have happened to me. And I remember going into the ICU, and I'm so thankful, so thankful that I had a really amazing team that took care of me. But it was super humbling, like at the time, I'm not even 30 yet. And I remember they asked, I had to lay on my belly the whole time. It was so uncomfortable. I'm covered in wires and tubes. And when I say like I felt like I was on my low, I don't even think I really had the words to explain it because although I was able, I was not able to wipe myself, even if I used the bathroom because of all the wires that are covering me. And so I would literally have to call the nurse to ask them to wipe me. Um, Again, I know that God allowed these things to happen in my life for a reason, so I'm thankful. Um, and I think even me just speaking about it right now, I am getting emotional because my heart sympathizes for, the people that are um compromised, that have health issues, that are, need relying and needing the care of other caretakers and hospital providers. And so I think God allowed me to experience that too, just so that I could witness to those that have been patients or are currently patients. And I remember specifically them telling me, "Hey, Mama, we're gonna need you to fight for your life," because I guess there was another mom that came in who was the same amount of months postpartum as me, and they told me that she didn't make it. So you can imagine this level of fear and uncertainty that I had. And again, like God is so gracious and such a blessing to me because my cousin, the same cousin from my previous testimony, it's just so crazy how God works. She was the manager for this hospital, or like the nurse manager for this hospital. So she was able to oversee and look into my records and just make sure that it was well taken care of and make updates to my family as well. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm so truly thankful for that. And I just remember like hitting an all-time low, and I couldn't get out of bed, couldn't move, couldn't walk. And as you know, those things are detrimental to mental health. And I just felt myself continuing to plummet. And I tried to numb myself. I, of course, read the Bible. I tried to get on calls with certain people, and I just felt discouraged. And I remember like I couldn't even properly sleep because I had to be on the clock, around the clock medications. And I remember one of the nurses telling me that they had placed me on stage 4 lung cancer patient medications, whatever that means. I knew they were just shoving a bunch of medications into my body. And I remember that because I was super hyperactive, like my mind was super, I just felt like super caffeinated. It's the only way I could describe it. Super on one. The only thing that would allow me to go to sleep was like they'd have to give me narcotics. And I was frustrated because by the time I would fall asleep, another nurse would come in to do my vitals. And so I was never really sleeping. I remember getting traumatized because I had to take heparin to prevent any blood clots. And I remember at a certain point, I even asked and began asking to decline because I just was so sick of getting that medication. Um, Fortunately, after I was stabilized in the ICU, they moved me over to a general floor. And some parts of it were a blur, but I just remember being like, wow, I have not stepped foot outside because I was in a hospital for quite some time. I want to say, I don't know. I just was hospitalized during that whole period for a long time, that anywhere from I think at least yeah, a month plus, if that. not including the fact that I was already hospitalized for sepsis. And so I just remember looking out the window and just wishing that I could go outside and get fresh air, and I couldn't even get that. And so just how much had taken that time for granted. And I remember when I finally got the green light to go home and seeing Nick for the first time because he was the one who had picked me up. And I went home and I felt like I couldn't even look at my children in the face because of all the trauma that I had gone through. And I even remember, like, I was, again, mind you, I was just so overly medicated that the best way to describe it is like I just felt so caffeinated, like super hypers, couldn't sleep. I actually ended up needing to buy edibles just to relax my nervous system, just so that I could take the edge off, just so my body could feel at peace again. And I even remember having like crazy mental um episodes where I was sitting in the bathroom. The only lack of better words, like I was tweaking out really. And I remember Nick came in the bathroom because I was hiding in there and he told me like, "Why are you hiding?" And I said to him that I was just, I don't know, like I wanted to be sent into a mental facility because I felt like I couldn't look at my kids in the eyes, and I told him I understood if he wanted to leave me. And I'm just so grateful that he saw past that and just held me and prayed for me and told me that everything was okay because he knew that I was having some forms of PTSD after everything that had happened to me. And I remember feeling incredibly hurt and lost during that period. And I remember asking God in that season where I felt like my life was going to end potentially. And I was crying out to God and I said, "God, like I know you've allowed me to enter this time and season where everything is uncertain." And I remember specifically reading Psalms 139 over and over and over again because I just wanted his word to breathe life into me because I felt completely dead. And I honestly, guys, like I didn't feel like I was gonna be alive after that. Like even if I came out physically alive, I just felt mentally dead. Like I didn't know what to do. And let me just read Psalms 139 out loud to you guys because I just feel it in my heart to be able to share with you what that word is. And I'm going to read to you guys the Passion Translation because I think it's so beautifully written. Psalms 139 Passion Translation. You know all about me. Lord, you know everything there is to know about me. You perceive every movement of my heart and soul, and you understand my every thought before it even enters my mind. You are so intimately aware of me, Lord. You read my heart like an open book, and you know all the words I'm about to speak before I even start a sentence. You know every step I will take before my journey even begins. You've gone into my future to prepare the way, and in kindness you follow behind me to spare me from the harm of my past. You have laid your hand on me. This is just too wonderful, deep, and incomprehensible. Your understanding of me brings me wonder and strength. Where could I go from your spirit? Where could I run and hide from your face? If I go up to heaven, you're there. If I go down to the realm of the dead, you are there too. If I fly with wings into the shining dawn, you're there. If I fly into the radiant sunset, you're there waiting. Wherever I go, your hand will guide me. Your strength will empower me. It's impossible to disappear from you or ask the darkness to hide me, for your presence is everywhere, bringing light into my night. There's no such thing as darkness with you. The night to you is as bright as the day. There's no difference between the two. You formed my innermost being, shaping my delicate inside, my intricate outside, and wove them all together in my mother's womb. My favorite verse. I thank you, God, for making me so mysteriously complex. Everything you do is marvelously breathtaking. It amazes me to think about it. How thoroughly you know me, Lord. You even formed every bone in my body when you created me in the secret place. Carefully, skillfully, you shaped me from nothing to something. You saw who you created me to be before I became me. Before I'd ever seen the light of day, the number of days you planned for me were already recorded in your book. Every single moment you are thinking of me, how precious and wonderful to consider that you cherish me constantly in your every thought. Oh God, your desires towards me are more than the grains of sand on every shore. When I wake each morning, you're still with me. I'm going to skip to the end because this is a specific verse that I kept repeatedly praying. And this is Psalms 139:23 to 24. God, I invite your searching gaze into my heart. Examine me through and through. Find out everything that may be hidden within me. Put me to the test and sift through all my anxious cares. See if there's any path of pain I'm walking on and lead me back to your glorious, everlasting way, the path that brings me back to you. So in that moment, in that season, where I just only had God at that point. I mean, I always have God, but it was like at my low, and at that God met me exactly where I needed to be. I said, Lord, there's several things in my life. I was still sinning. I was still, even though God had met me, and had saved me and allowed me to pursue him, there were still several things that I wasn't fully convicted in, especially during COVID when, you're stuck at home, you feel trapped, you feel like there was nothing to do. We also entered the era where, again, bones out of the closet, began drinking again, like we haven't done in a long time, like hardcore drinking, smoking a lot of weed, doing a lot of drugs, yeah, doing a lot of things that I'm not proud of. And and of course, when we do a lot of those substance abuse, although it's fun for the moment, we all know that we end up crashing. And so that also contributed to a lot of the depression that I was already feeling during COVID. And so I was asking God in that season, I said, Lord, would you look at me and help me to be convicted in many areas of my life where I'm not? Because there was a lot of areas where I still had to grow up and still needed to learn from. And again, this is sensitive, but there's elements that I had some hard times kind of shuffling with that I asked the Lord to convict me in because I knew and I said, because if your word is true, then it doesn't matter what I feel. However, Lord, like I'm praying that you allow my mind and my heart to be in alignment because I think that's like a struggle that I have and sometimes continuously battle where like I know what the right thing is, but my feelings and my body and my mouth aren't doing it. And so there's this misalignment that's happening. And then I feel like a fraud. And then I feel like, I guess like the word is maybe imposter syndrome. I feel like, how can I call myself a Christian when I'm not actually living out the truths that are called? And so there were also areas in my life where I asked God to show himself to me and convict me. And one of them being was, you know, prior to being fully born again, like I was, I still was a big supporter of the LGBTQ community. And I was still very pro-choice. And granted, this is sensitive topics. I was also not really for medical freedoms. I'm raising all the like red flags here, but I was asking God to really show me and reveal himself because again, these are major things that we're going through in our culture and our society. And I wanted God to transform my heart and just convict me. And it was honestly during that season where the only way I could describe it is truly being born again. And it was actually during COVID when my husband and I ended up getting married, ended up getting baptized. And it was also through this season where I was truly born again. And I felt like the only way I could describe it is God downloaded so much information in me as I was yearning and hungry for Him. And He started convicting me, softening my heart, changing my mind, even leveraging different platforms. I'll even have to say like Isaiah Saldivar, like on Deliverance and Vlad, the great giants of deliverance. Like I was just being truly awakened to spiritual gifts. It was also during the season where I began to explore the gifts of prophecy, and this was also the season where I began speaking in tongues. The original prayer that I had was actually to speak in tongues, to speak Vietnamese so I could minister to my family, but God blessed me with spiritual prayer tongues. And like I went from like literally being dead, like Lazarus, to like being overly spiritually filled. And I think what happens, and the reason why I'm sharing that is because there's a specific Bible verse that's coming to my head that I want to describe. And I want to say it's Corinthians, and it's on the topic of love. And I just feel like this is something that I want to share, and something I believe the Lord wants to share with all of us. Where is it? On love. But as I'm looking for this verse, yes, First Corinthians 13. Before I read this verse, I think the reason why I feel it in my heart to share is because I think that when we think of followers of Christ, and often we think like, okay, like there's people who are more educated, more knowledgeable, have more gifts, etc. If you don't operate with the love of Christ and you don't know how to formally even use the gifts that He's given you, then truly you have nothing. And this is actually what that Bible verse says in First Corinthians 13. If I were to speak with eloquence in earth's many languages and in the heavenly tongue of angels, yet I didn't express myself with love, my words would be reduced to the hollow sound of nothing more than a clanging cymbal. And if I were to have the gift of prophecy with a profound understanding of God's hidden secrets, and if I possess unending supernatural knowledge, and if I had the greatest gift of faith that could move mountains but have never learned to love, then I am nothing. And if I were to be so generous as to give away everything I own to feed the poor and to offer my body to be burned as a martyr, without the pure motive of love, I would gain nothing of value. Love is large and incredibly patient. Love is gentle and consistently kind to all. It refuses to be jealous when blessing comes to someone else. Love does not brag about one's achievements nor inflate its own importance. Love does not traffic in shame and disrespect, nor selfishly seek its own honor. Love is not easily irritated or quick to take offense. Love joyfully celebrates honesty and finds no delight in what is wrong. Love is a safe place of shelter, for it never stops believing the best for others. Love never takes failure as defeat, for it never gives up. And so I think just to close, because I know we've spent quite some time here together, we love because God loved us first. And I am such a sinner that I did not know how to love people correctly. I did not know how to love myself correctly. I did not know how to love others, and I didn't know how to be patient. I'll even say that I didn't know how to love my husband or my children the way that they deserved and should. And I didn't really know how to shepherd people and then would get frustrated when they too didn't share the burning love that I had for Christ. And to summarize, God is so graceful because even in my flaws, I believe He's allowed me to sin so that I could learn from it, so that I could grow, and so that I could evolve. And I know that He's consistently delivering me from the incorrect way of what love looks like. And I'm kind of laughing because I think about how extreme I was. Like, I think for those that do know me, I kind of went all out, like all in, bat crazy. Um, because I remember just thinking like I just I was intense. I was very intense. The next episode will be about how God had to turn down that intensity in the season that He's walked me through. But I wanted to explain the part two of my testimony and where how when God met me where I was and how He's given me a lot of vision and provision and how He's done it in a way because He has a plan for me. He's going to use me as He's going to use you. And my heart and prayer and understanding now that I have a little more wisdom and experience down my belt is for those of you that are listening that feel like you have no purpose, who feel like what's on the other side, like why am I even here? I highly encourage you to read Psalms 139 and God, ask God to open your eyes. Because I promise you, once you ask Him to open your eyes, open your ears, and soften your heart, your life will change. There's convictions and understandings that will be revealed to you when you choose to come closer to Him. And He's waiting. It's an invitation. Um, and I just pray that over you. I pray for blessings over you. I pray that you encounter Him and that you know Him. And so I just want to say thank you so much for joining me on this table. There's just so much that I continuously want to share. Thank you for allowing me to evolve with you and grow with you. And my hope and prayer is that we can continue to walk this journey together. Alrighty, guys. Love you guys.